Hey guys, welcome. NBA recaps with your boy Red City, host of Sports and Shorts of Sorts. Yours truly, Red City. Sports podcast where I end it with a short and I didn't have enough room for NBA content. That's why you're here. Check out some NBA news, see what's going on. I know we just had the All-Star weekend, so we'll recap that. It's a little different. I won't break down all the teams and the games they just played because we just had games played yesterday. We had a long break, but let's hop right to it, guys. Okay, we had, like I said, All Star Weekend. It's come and gone. It kicked off Friday with some celebrity hoops. I named a bunch of people that I didn't really know. Kind of turned into a football battle of anything. You had Micah Parsons winning game MVP. He took it home. He took it home quite easily, actually. 37 points, 16 rebounds. Team Shannon beat Stephen A's team. You had Rams wide receiver Puka Nakua putting up 16 points, big dunks in that game. YouTuber Tristan Yass, I wasn't too familiar with him. He was lighting it up. He had a little exchange with WNBA All Star Kelsey Plum at halftime. He was saying hello, shaking hands, and she said, "Yo, pass the ball." Led to some Twitter beef, as All Star games do. And he went on, well, X, sorry. And he's like, I had more assists at halftime than she averaged her whole last season, and more assists at halftime than her whole career average. How about you pass the ball? Which prompted Kelsey Plum to respond with, "You little naked mole rat." Fair. Which is, if you look at him, he is kind of mole rat looky. So I understand that as well. Um, Excuse me, but yeah, that's great response. Lil Wayne showed up to the game as he was coach. He showed up a little late, looking all kinds of high. You could hear him going, "Why are we calling it timeout during crunch time?" It was pretty funny. The fancy floor, they talked about it the nonstop, where they could hit it and it would change colors. Setting up what kind of future of basketball we could have with an interactive floor. I hope they don't get too wild with it. The Rising Stars game that came on after, and it was pretty good. Team Jalen, they went down a bit early. They'd go. Excuse me, let me just find that here. Sorry. They'd go up. They'd go down early, starting 9-0 to start the game, but they'd come back and take it. Benedict Mathurin put on a show in front of the Indiana crowd, doing what he usually does in front of the Indiana crowd. J-Dub from Oklahoma City, Jalen Williams, put on the finishing touches as they got the win over Team Tamika Catchings. Next game, you had Detlef Schrempf's G League team taking on Pau Gasol's team. That Pau team looked really good, but you could tell the G League team were a little hungrier, taking a little more serious, coming in with an 11-0 run. Wemby did Wemby things to try to get the team back, cutting the 12-point deficit down to one, but Team Deflet pulled it off. The big upset turnaround jumper by Matis Buzilis to clinch the game. I don't know if there can be upsets at All-Star events, but this looked like an upset. The people, they look kind of ticked off. They lost to the G Leaguers. They look pumped. They wanted it more, they got it. And then that set up a Detlef Jalen matchup, which went quick and painless. Team Jalen did what the G League squad, what I thought Team Pow was going to do to them. They doubled their points. J-Dub hitting the game-winning three. Benedict Mathurin won MVP in front of the home crowd. Probably the most competitive event of the weekend, I'm not going to lie. But skills contest was next. You had some bloopers, if there was anything. Scotty Barnes from the Raptors losing the ball while dribbling in a skill contest. Philadelphia's Tyrese Maxey went the wrong way on the obstacle course, was whistled, told to go back, which he did. Right after, Paulo Banchero did the exact same thing, went the wrong way. He was whistled, told to go back. It's like, what are we doing? Anthony Edwards was trying three-pointers with his left hand. Wemby was shaking his head. He's like, man, I can't win with anyone in this league in anything. But the Pacers had the best time and took that challenge. The second skill was a passing one. The Pacers won that, winning it in a tiebreaker, setting up a third event to decide it. It was a shooting challenge here. You had everyone shooting, and it would come down to halfway or the half court shots, and it was brutal. Finally, Maxey would hit one, but Scotty Barnes was lobbing him over his head. The Pacers would step up, and they'd win with a 20-second gap, giving them the skills contest, and they'd win the whole thing, right? It's third year in a row the host teams won. Cleveland won it, then Utah won it, now Indiana. no pressure, Golden State. You kind of have to hold up next year. That brought on the 3-point contest, which is kind of a big thing right now. It's kind of bigger than the dunk contest. We'll get more there, but Dame, Trey, and Karl Anthony Towns and Tyrese Halliburton all hit the same amount. Had to go to a tiebreaker, and Lillard, Young, and Towns would advance. Lillard would win it again in the finals. Back to back year, he hoists the trophy. First back to back winner since Jason Capono. He did it back in 2007, 2008, former Raptor. That shooting display was a nice segue into the Steph and Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu shootout. Steph beat Sabrina in the battle, but it was pretty even. Sabrina was shooting from the same distance the men used. She was using WNBA ball, but shooting from the exact distance, and she put up 26 points. The same amount that would have got her into the final in the men's contest. Steph, he looked worried, barely pulling out the win with 29, which is crazy. That's as close as you can get. And just a reminder that anyone can shoot, it doesn't matter who you are, you can shoot. And it was a really cool moment. There was kind of a Buzz Killington on it, with the usual not Buzz Killington character, Kenny the Jet Smith, doing commentary, constantly bringing up, oh, she's using a different ball, but she's shooting from the same distance, putting up the same score. Reggie Miller was checking Kenny a bit, and you knew he would, because his sister Cheryl Miller is arguably one of the best basketball players ever to play, so it's a really fun moment that kind of had a little buzzkill on it, but it was really cool, and I'm hoping to see what it's like next year, to see who's in it, Steph, Sabrina, and who else, bring someone else into the party. Because the dunk contest, yeah. Mac McClung, we know he was winner last year. He had a huge dunk, wasn't given a 50, It was probably the best one of the night. Grabbed the ball while jumping over someone, tossed it in the air to himself again before dunking. He got a bad score. The judges were getting boos. Hard to get the momentum going after that. My pick didn't go well. I picked Yamayakis Jr. He was knocked out early. I feel Jacob Toppin was a little robbed and probably should have made the final against McClung, but Jaylen Brown made the final, and yeah, it didn't go so well. McClung jumped over Shaq, get the only 50 of the night, giving him the second dunk contest crown back to back. Zach LaVine was the last one to do that in 2015-16, but not your fanciest dunk contest by any means. Jaylen Brown tried to do the classic D Brown Celtics dunk where he covered his eyes and dunked, but when he caught the ball, he dunked, then covered his eyes. It was not the best Saturday night All-Star performance. Like I said, the 3-point contest, and you had the Steph Sabrina contest, and then, yeah, it kind of went downhill from there. But we'll see what we can do to fix this going forward. That led to the big game Sunday. The league was hoping for a contested game. They're like, come on, guys, try this year. We just got a high-scoring one. Defense non-existent, just like the games have been of late. One of the best defensive plays was like Steph Curry blocking a shot from behind. That's how you know there wasn't a lot of defense, It's an exhibition game. Guys are having fun, They're taking wild shots, trying to make them. Not a lot of defense. It looked like Halliburton had a chance to maybe take MVP in front of the home crowd, and then Damian Lillard went bananas, hitting threes from deeper and deeper, pulling up from half, pulling nothing but net. It was impressive. Karl Anthony Towns put up 50 in a loss, but the trophy, the Kobe Bryant MVP award, went to Dame Dolla. First time he'd start an All-Star game, and he'd win All-Star MVP. So, in all, there was some highs and lows of the weekend, but probably more lows. The dunk contest, like I said, killed any momentum built up from the shooting contest. That Curry-Nescu battle was pretty dope. And on Friday, those young dudes were balling, the rising stars. Like I said, probably the most competitive ball you'd see all weekend. And everyone's asking, how do you fix it? Well, I've got a few suggestions. The Friday's kind of a wash for people who want to see celebrities. That format's still a little different from either of the Rising Stars, but at least they cared a little. Caring is a win in my books, so maybe we'll just keep that as is. The shooting contest, keep that the same. Bring someone new in with the Sabrina and Steph thing. Maybe Caitlin Clark next year, Kelsey Plum. She was already out there. Might as well suit her up, get her to shoot, Lots of fun stuff to bring in there. And, for the dunk contest, I don't know, you can try begging the superstars more, seeing if they'll join, go full dunk mode. But if that doesn't work, go outside the NBA, find the very best dunkers on the planet and get them to participate, Call up Jordan Klingon and, get him in there. These are guys that are professional dunkers. And if you're not going to get the biggest names, in the NBA, you're not going to get the best basketball players. You might as well go get the best dunkers, make it exciting. But regarding the game, that's a tough one. It's tough to make people care. Seen lots of video, people reminiscing, going back to that great 2001 All Star game 23 years ago now, yeah, where the East stormed back 21 points down to come back and beat the West 111 to 110. Allen Iverson winning MVP. At no point of this year's game did you ever think, wow, I think they're going to go on a huge run and come back. That never once crossed my mind. But, it's hard to make people care. Everyone emphasizes NBA championships. So how are you going to hype someone up to play an exhibition game? Say someone tears their ACL and you're like, what are you doing in this meaningless game? So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. It seems the All Star game now is about getting that All Star nod because it looks good on the resume. It helps negotiations in the contract, and that's kind of it. Maybe you give some kind of weird incentive, like if you win the All Star game, the East, depending on your conference, you get home court advantage in the finals. That might make it interesting. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to make people care, and you emphasize the importance of other things, and then you're like, why don't you care about this? It's like, because right now, winning in the All Star game is like fifth or sixth on the list of importance. It's not really up there. But yeah, that's kind of my recap for potential fix for the All Star game. We'll predict how teams are going to go on to finish the year here. And just a reminder, I handed out some mid-season trophies last episode. Well, not physically, but these are my choices of who's the MVP, Rookie of the Year so far, and should take it at the end of the year. Let's start MVP, Oklahoma City, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Nothing's changed with me on that. Joel Embiid's injury kind of swung things there. Rookie of the Year, I'm going with Victor Wembanyama. Chet Holmgren kind of hit a wall before the rookie or the All-Star break. He might jump that wall. He's pretty tall. But Coach of the Year, Minnesota's Chris Finch. Most Improved Player, Chicago's Kobe White. Sixth Man of the Year, Sacramento's Malik Monk. So those are the mid-season trophies that should translate to the end of the year. Who knows? Should be close. A little different from my preseason choice, but we'll go the end of the year. We'll wrap that up. It's like a time capsule. But anyway, we'll start in the Atlantic Division out east, like I always do. The Boston Celtics, bam, wearing their jerseys. They're still the best record in the NBA. They started the second half of the season by going to Chicago and beating them soundly. They are now on a 7-game winning streak. This team has damn near been at the top of the Ren City top 5 all season. They've been top of the NBA, one of the best, if not the best, starting 5 in basketball. I preached that all season. I'll continue it. This team's going to continue to look great in the Eastern Conference, and this team is purely judged on what they're going to do in the playoffs. Maybe this is their year. They seem destined, I feel. In saying that, will the stars align? Will we get a Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown championship? Get them raising the Larry O'Brien trophy like everyone predicted when they had such great starts to their Boston careers. But we've seen in years past, the best team in the league doesn't always win the title. So there's a lot of pressure on this team. Tatum said he wants to be the face of the league going forward. You need a title. You need a title to be a face. To have a face, you need a title. So we'll see. We'll see if the Celtics can win that title or if they're just going to do what they've done the last few years and come up short. Next in the Atlantic, New York Knicks started the second half of the season by going on the road and beating a team that I'll talk about next, the 76ers. Jalen Brunson continuing to look like his usual self he's done all season, and the new additions really shine. Precious Achiuwa continues to look like the biggest steal in that Raptors deal, and Bogdanovich, he did what he was brought in to do. 22 points, 24 minutes off the bench. Hartenstein was back in the lineup, but played sparingly as they're trying to bring him back in after an Achilles injury. You really want to be careful with that. He said he was frustrated. He was expecting more time, but you don't want to risk that, especially with Mitchell Robinson still out. And like I said, Robinson's out, Randall's out, OG's out, but this team still looks good, 5 guys in double figures in the win yesterday. I can still see them staying more than just afloat in the East. And when they get those guys I talked about back in the lineup, they could win a series or two, and we could be talking about the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's crazy to think about, but they're trending. I mentioned the team that lost to the Knicks there. Let's talk about them now. The Philadelphia 76ers. They never looked too threatening in that loss. They'd have a great third quarter, but yeah, they never really scared the Knicks into thinking they'd win. And I've mentioned it before. I'll mention it again. Everyone will mention it. This team goes as Joel Embiid goes. He's still out with injury. We're not too sure on the timetable on when he's going to come back. There's word March 20th. There's word April 2nd, anywhere in between. It's hard to say. The guy's had knee injury problems, and this is another one. But hopefully he can come back. Like Tyrese Maxey from the All Star game there, he had 35 points in the loss, but he needs his partner in crime or some partner. Tobias Harris had a down night. Kyle Lowry at least made his Philly debut in front of the home crowd. 11 points, 5 dimes, and 4 boards for the former Raptor. It's weird seeing him rocking the number 99, but see what happens. Hopefully they can get Embiid back sooner than later, because I don't know how far they'll drop in the standings without him. We'll go next in this division, the Brooklyn Nets. They didn't stay quiet over the All-Star break. They shook the team up a bit, firing coach Jacques Vaughn. He had a 21-33 record with the team before they fired him. He had a 71-68 career record with the team, 0-8 in the playoffs, but yeah, I was surprised to see him get let go. This team has been disappointing, but I don't know if it's all on him. They're going with interim coach Kevin Ollie for now, and they're going to do a full coaching search this offseason. But with that being said, the Nets hit the court last night to take on the Raptors, and they played similar to how they did going into the break, which wasn't very good. The game was a blowout. The Nets looked disappointing. You hope for a bigger performance after a coaching change, some kind of spark. Mikal Bridges is still kind of looking like the leader of this team. Cam Thomas is still a chucker on the team. You need those guys to score, but I think Mikal Bridges, they're saying it's going to be his team. But it's tough. This team could come out and surprise you on any good night because they have the talent. Like I said, Cam Thomas, he's a chucker, but he's a scorer. He's a good player. I don't know if he fits in with the role they have right now. I don't even know if the team knows what the roles are, hence the coach change, I guess. This team lacks continuity. They lack consistency. It's up to Sean Marks to figure out what to do with this team going next season. Even if Sean Marks is even there, I guess he could get let go, right? One of the biggest things, obviously, holding the team back is that Ben Simmons contract. $37 million on the books this year. He's owed $40 million next year. Once they can get that off their team, they should be set up to get better going forward. But right now, I think it's audition night every night for the Brooklyn Nets. See who's going to be on the team or get moved on to someone else. Pardon me. We'll wrap up the Atlantic going to Toronto Raptors, the team that beat the before-mentioned Brooklyn Nets. They looked pretty amazing in that win over Brooklyn, but that's not saying much, considering what I just said about Brooklyn there. But I'm looking at the Raptors optimistic here. The event staff in the stadium almost had to grab a fire extinguisher because Emmanuel Quickley and Gary Trent Jr. were on fire. They finished with 24 and 25 points respectively, and they showed off depth. And in this win, everybody's scoring, giving Coach Darko a birthday present with a win. It was his birthday. And I'm not sure what the Raptors' plan is going into the second part of the season. Are we tanking? Are we playing the win? What are we doing? I think they're going to be looking to win. 4.5 games back, the Atlanta Hawks, who they play tonight for that last play-in spot. If the Raptors continue to develop this chemistry while winning on the fly, they could make the play-in game, which I'm not saying they're going to make a big run, but the development on getting some kind of experience for these young guys would be great. We'll see what happens with them. We'll leave the Atlantic, go to the Central with the Cleveland Cavaliers, one of the hottest teams in the NBA going into the All-Star break, second best record in the Eastern Conference, and they lose to the Orlando Magic coming out of the break. Donovan Mitchell didn't play due to illness, and he was pretty missed in this one. They'd come up close, and usually the very deep Cavs team had their bench outbenched by the Magics. And like I said, the Cavs don't have their bench outplayed very often, but it was very noticeable that Mitchell wasn't in this game. And I'm not one bit worried about this Cavs team. Mitchell will be back. And they say young guys got to lose in the playoffs before they're better. Mitchell's lost in the playoffs. I think he has that kind of meanness, tenacity, the will to get this team far in the playoffs. I truly believe that. They're deep enough. That front court is something else. I don't think this team needs to be taken lightly. They're second best in the East for a reason. JB Bickerstaff. If I didn't have Chris Finch as coach of the year, JB's right up there. No one's thought of Cleveland this much of a title threat since LeBron James was in town. So I'm excited to see the second half of the season for the Cavaliers and see if they can hold on to win this division. We'll go the next team in the division favorites, the Milwaukee Bucks. They've been one of the most talked about teams this year, and not a lot of it's been good. Before the season started, I picked this team to win the NBA championship, and a lot has changed since that prediction, you know. In the second best record in the Eastern Conference when they decided to fire head coach Adrian Griffin, replace him with Doc Rivers. Since then, 3-7 record for Doc, and they're now third in the conference. Doc still weirdly coached in the All Star game where Damian Lillard won MVP. I was so close. I picked Giannis to win MVP, but I picked the wrong Buck. But there were some happy moments there. But it's mostly a cloud of frustration hanging over the state of Wisconsin and the Milwaukee Bucks. The only cure for this cloud, it's not wind or anything, it's winning. And it won't get easier. The Bucks' first post All-Star break games against the Minnesota Timberwolves. You know, this team's got a lot of pressure on them. Will we see Doc Rivers rise up like in 2008 when he won the title with the Boston Celtics, you know, the lone championship of his coaching career? Or will this team fizzle and come up short like a lot of Doc's other teams? This team has the talent. They have the champion experience from their main guy, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He said it's Dame's team. I do not buy that one bit. This is the Greek Freaks team, and come playoff time, it's on him to raise this team to a title. He's done it once before. Whether this team can get those timely stops, that's the big thing. And listen, I don't flip-flop unless I'm rocking summer attire, so I'm staying with my preseason pick of the Milwaukee Bucks, but they got a lot of work to do here. Next up in the division, the host of the All-Star game, the Indiana Pacers. Their first game after the break, they stayed at home, held on to beat the Pistons. Halliburton showed out, 25 points, 13 assists. It said he's no longer on a minutes restriction after he's coming back from that injury. We can go back to seeing Halliburton do his thing back pre-injury. It's going to be great to see him grow chemistry with Pascal Siakam. You know, they've had limited time together. It'll be good to let him shine. Benedict Mathurin, he started that game as well, and I hope it's kind of permanent here. You know, he was my preseason choice to win Most Improved Player. I think I might have been a year too soon on that. But we got to see him in the Rising Stars competition, and they're like, you know what, maybe let's give him some more minutes, you know? This team is deeper than Mariana's Trench, you know? And they could have a guy stepping up any different night. TJ McConnell last night, you know? It could be anybody. And before the moves, I was saying, who's Halliburton's partner in crime? Who's the number two? And I know a lot of good number twos. And Spicy P, that mixture, him and Halliburton, that's a 1-2 punch. You throw a Mathurin and Miles Turner, not needing to be a number two, but a rotating three. Don't sleep on these Pacers. You know, I said before the season started they'd be this year's Sacramento Kings of last season. Maybe seeming a little hyperbolic right now, but I can see them finishing higher than their current 6th seed in the conference. We'll go from Indiana to Chicago. I mentioned the Bulls hosting the hot Celtics and losing in their first game after the All-Star break. That final scoreline looks a little bad, but the Bulls were in this game for a while. You know, the Celtics are just really damn good right now. The Bulls stayed still at the deadline, you know, and surprised a few people, including myself, you know, and Zach LaVine's not walking in that door, well, not without crutches at least, but my midseason most improved player and, you know, probably winner at the end of the year, Kobe White's been the man. He dropped 20 points in that loss to Boston. I see his numbers continuing to grow by year's end. This team's sitting 9th in the East and can slither in the playoffs via that play-in, and they have enough talent to get in. Going into next season, that's another thing. All the speculation, what are we doing next season? Let's concentrate on right now and be a little worried because, like working late in a China shop, you have to watch out for the Bulls. They could sneak up on you. Wrapping up the Central, we'll go to Detroit City. The Pistons open up their second half of the season, losing on the road to Indiana that I mentioned there. But this is another team I'm looking at with a little glass half full attitude. I mean, things can't be as worse as they were earlier in the season for the Pistons. And this current losing streak's at 4, much lower than it ever escalated to earlier in the season. And I mean, they got tough games coming up against the Magic, Knicks, and Bulls. But this team just post-deadline seems to have a better vibe to it, you know. Cade Cunningham put up 30 points and 8 dimes in that loss, but they had 6 Pistons in double figures. And just over the next few weeks, watch them. This will be Mr. Steal Your Team's wins here. They're going to come in and steal them. They got guys growing. They're developing. Their current starting 5, they're going to put up some nice highlights, and they're going to look good. You know, they might get blown out, but they're going to fight. And this is the core I think they have going forward. Oscar Thompson, Simone Fontecchio, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, and of course Cade Cunningham. That 5, that's a good 5. Watch this team going forward. Pistons should maybe get some W's here. Let's turn those L's into W's. We'll go to the Southeast, to wrap up the Eastern Conference, starting with division leading Orlando Magic. They won their first post All-Star game against the Cavs that I mentioned earlier, and I highlighted how great their bench was, outplaying a good Cleveland team who has a great bench. Mo Wagner dropped 22 points, grabbed 7 boards. Cole Anthony 13.6 times, and old man Aussie Joe Ingles 12 points off, all off the bench. And this team's getting back to more of the team we saw in the beginning of the season. That two-headed beast, Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner. They didn't need to do a lot in that win there, but we need to give more credit. Not enough credit to a lot of young, good coaches in this league. Jamal Mosley, what he's doing with this young squad. It's not easy just to give out minutes to who. Everybody wants minutes, especially young guys, and what he's doing, he seems to got this rotations formula right down to a pat. I know the game isn't played on paper, but looking at the upcoming schedule, there's no reason this Magic team can't turn this two-game winning streak to at least a 7. They can win some of these games here and move up the standings. Let's see what this young team can do. They say they're ready. Let's see if you're ready. We'll stick in Florida and go with the Heat, who are only half a game behind the Magic because the Magic played last night and have that half-game advantage. But anyway, the Heat start their post-All-Star break with a road game in New Orleans tonight, and it's second night of a back-to-back for the Pelicans, so that might help the Heat. Jimmy Butler's helping the Heat returning to the lineup. He took a leave of absence before the All-Star break to deal with a death in his family, so hopefully he's able to return with a clear mind. Never easy to do returning from that. This team's still without scary Terry Rozier, but the Heat are starting to get mostly healthy. They're known for turning it up later in the season, and I'm fully expecting that to happen again. This Heat culture, we ready to come playoff time. The development of rookie Yame Yakez Jr., don't look too much into that dunk contest of his. Watch him on the floor. That's where he's really thriving. I'm liking his involvement more. I'm liking Nikola Jovic with the injuries. It seems he's starting to get more time. He's been putting the work in, and you can tell it's starting to show. Just like the summer on the horizon, the heat is coming. Next up in the Southeast, the Atlanta Hawks. They play their first post-All-Star game tonight against the Raptors, who, as I mentioned, will be playing the second night of a back-to-back. This Hawks team stayed still at the trade deadline, surprising many. Now they know who's playing each night. They know who's coming in their door. We'll see what this backcourt combination. They said Trae Young, DeJounte Murray will work. It hasn't worked as much as they said, but there's still time to go in the year here. We can see what they can do. Trae Young's trying to get more respect to the league from the league. I don't know why he gets so much hate. Is it his hair? I don't know. The guy's he's pretty good baller. He's second in the league in assists. But anyway, we'll see. We know what he can do in the playoffs. He got this team to an Eastern Conference final. And we'll see if DeJounte Murray can help them get back there. And if you look at the words Atlanta Hawks, there's no D in there. And it's very prevalent on the floor as well because they give up so many easy baskets. It's hard to win in the NBA, I hear. I've never played, but I've watched my whole damn life, and it's hard to win. If you're going to give the team easy baskets, it's going to make it that much harder for you. It's not getting easier with Onyeka and Kongwu still out with injury for the unforeseeable future, but at least Clint Capella's coming back. One of the few guys on the team known for defense. I might have hyped him up way too much preseason, but we'll see. And if, like I said, Kobe White of the Bulls earlier, if he wasn't balling as much as he is, Jalen Johnson would be winning Most Improved Player. He can be a real difference maker of this team to finish the season, and maybe even bump him into that trophy consideration. And with Kongwu out, Capella's back, but let's unleash more Bruno Fernando, the big man from Angola. He's a big man. He's tough, and this team is lacking toughness. Toss him in there and see what's going on. The Hawks are a toss-up for me. I've mentioned teams that I think can rise up in the second half of the season and some teams that may falter. The Hawks, it's a toss-up right now. They could rise up and move up the standings here, or they could look like an aging Hawk in a hurricane and just fall. But I mentioned some teams that I feel are going to rise. This team is rising right now. This stock is high. The Charlotte Hornets, they've won 3 games in a row going into the All-Star break, and they kept that going after the break, going into Utah and beating the Jazz for their 4th in a row. PJ Washington was great off the bench for the Hornets, and he might be the final piece in Dallas. Gordon Hayward wasn't even playing for Charlotte. So the moves they made and how they're looking post-trade deadline is awesome. Talk about a quick turnaround. They're doing it all without LaMelo Ball. Trey Mann, I was saying, he's the guy. Coming from OKC, could be the best player in this deal, Maybe that's been a little of a hyperbole so far, but he's still looking pretty good, The subtraction of Terry Rozier has opened up more shots for number 2 overall pick Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges. the latter has become kind of a leader on this team, which is hard for me to say with what Bridges has done in his personal life as late. But I do like his redemption story here that he seems to be taking. Grant Williams, the new scenery, has really helped him. They're saying his time was wearing out in Dallas, however you want to take that. But he's looking pretty good in Charlotte right now, and he's kind of allowing them to go to a smaller lineup because he really holds his own down there for a smaller dude. And that can give some reps to Nick Richards, who's really been holding down the fort with Mark Williams out. And that one really bugs me. That second year, Mark Williams was having such a great year until he got that back injury, which is way back in early December. It was like back soreness, back contusion. It's still not said when he's coming back. A real bummer because he made a difference. And with this current squad, he'd make a huge difference. And Ball, we still don't know when he's coming back from his ankle injury. It'll be interesting to see how they bring him back into the lineup. This team's winning streak is going up into a tough one as they go up against the Golden State Warriors tonight. That should be a fun one. Originally looking at the schedule, you're like Hornets, Warriors. That could be a good game tonight. Maybe tune into that one. We'll wrap up the Eastern Conference by going to the Washington Wizards. They entered the All-Star break on an 8-game losing streak, and they kept that trend going, losing like 20 in Denver against the Nuggets. The Wizards need something new. They brought Jordan Poole off the bench, switching things up. He was great off the bench in Golden State. He had 18 off the bench in the loss. Kyle Kuzma was really the only Wizard that showed up, scoring 31 points and 12 boards in the loss. It was tough to see Denny Avdia do so bad in that game. He was playing so well going into the break. So hopefully the team was just on break time and they're just adjusting back to coming back to the NBA a little slow. I'm not sure. It's the front office is just really checking this team out to see who we're keeping, who we're letting go. I feel at this point, I don't think they have really any threat in the second half of the season. But we'll go to the Western Conference, the Northwest. Western Conference and division leading Minnesota Timberwolves. They entered the break on a 4-game winning streak, and they've looked like one of the best teams all year. They have the best record in the Western Conference pretty much the whole year. They have a tough game coming out of the break, hosting the Milwaukee Bucks, but I don't see this team faltering. They still, knock on wood, have their health. They have their swaggy leader in Anthony Edwards, and more importantly, they defend, and they defend every game. They have the best defense in the league right now. That Rudy Gobert acquisition that everyone judged, including myself, starting to look pretty good right now. It just took a few seasons to show its true value. This team will continue to play well at the end of the season. I don't doubt that. It's how this team plays in the postseason. Immaturity has been a label on this team that they've kind of dismissed a little bit. In the playoffs, when that immaturity resurfaces, how will they handle it? That's what it'll really come down to. Next up in the division and in the conference, the Oklahoma City Thunder. They took a 2-game winning streak into the break and had a tough challenge coming out hosting the Clippers. They weren't worried, though. They beat the Clippers by 22 in that one. My MVP choice, as you heard near the top of the show, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander dropped 31 points, and the Thunder had 5 players in double figures as they took that one. Chet Holmgren, I mentioned earlier, he kind of hit a rookie wall, it was looking like. It looked like he cleared the wall in that game, having a great night. Gordon Hayward made his debut with the club after getting acquired from the Hornets. He played 14 minutes off the bench. No points on 0 for 2 shooting, but he had 4 boards. Mentioned before, I wasn't a big move of the Hayward addition, but there's not a lot of minutes for him anyway. So maybe just his veteran presence will be enough to deem the trade successful, I guess. I still don't like losing Trey Mann, but he'll be good with the Hornets. So it's good he'll get to play. Next up in the division, the defending champion, current 4th seed in the conference, Denver Nuggets. They limped into the All-Star break, losing 3 games in a row, but had a nice cure coming out hosting the Wizards. Like I mentioned, they trounced the Wizards there. Easy win for the Nuggets. A perfect stepping stone, which should be a very successful second half of the season for them. Nikola Jokic, he was very quiet in the All-Star exhibition game, but reminded us of what he could do in games that matter. Recording a triple-double while shooting 100% from the field. Yeah, that's right. 21 points, 19 boards, 15 dimes without missing a shot. Yeah, that's real life. Jamal Murray again showed the world he doesn't need that all-star recognition to be one of the best guards in the game. This team basically has the same championship structure as they did last year. They have rookie Peyton Watson stepping in that Bruce Brown role, and he looked good yesterday, swatting the ball into the stands and looking like a young, smaller Mutombo. But I don't see why this team can't repeat as NBA champions, though. They're champs until someone knocks them out. Next up in the division, the Utah Jazz, they really cooled off going into the break, losing 4 in a row. Coming out of the break, they hosted the Hornets, and as I mentioned, the new Hornets took care of business. It was a tough loss. Now they're 5th in a row. But don't give up on Jazz yet. Lauri Markkanen, he's still the main guy on the team, and there's still enough teams around him to get some wins. Team around him's kind of young, though. They do have some vets in John Collins. His rebounds picked up a bit, but they need him to score more. I still don't know why they're not playing Walker Kessler. I don't want to question Will Hardy, one of the best young coaches in the league, but I'm just not getting the usage of Walker Kessler. He's one of the best shot blockers in the game, and he barely gets any minutes. But anyway, Colin Sexton, he continues to show great leadership at the show you what a point guard needs to do. And rookies Taylor Hendricks and Keontae George are getting extended minutes with Jordan Clarkson still rocking that 6-man role. You know, the Jazz have some winnable games coming up, and if they want a shot at the play-in, they got to break this losing streak here. We'll wrap up the Northwest, go to Portland. Like teams I mentioned before, the Blazers limped into the All-Star break, losing 6 in a row. They don't get any easier as they host the Nuggets tonight. You know, maybe they can shock the Nuggets as they play their second game of a back-to-back, but I kind of doubt that. This team's still developing on the fly. I mentioned the Nuggets matchup, but the Blazers have some tough games coming up, and the six-game losing streak can really balloon on them. Canadian Shaden Sharp's still out, and it's not looking like he's coming back. It's a big bummer, but it'll be nice to see Scoot Henderson start to develop with Anthony Simons and see what this backcourt can grow into. We'll leave the Northwest, go to the Pacific, division-leading Los Angeles Clippers, team with the third best record in the West. They stumbled a little bit coming out of the All-Star break, losing by 22 in Oklahoma City, as I mentioned. But this team looked good in the first half, just came out flat in the second. I wouldn't think too much into this. Like I said, this team, I feel it's title worthy, and I believe they're going to take yesterday's loss out on the Grizzlies tonight, and that should help propel them here. They got 2 tough games coming up after that against the Kings and Lakers, respectively, but look at Kawhi and PG to remind us why they're all-stars, but watch the increased play of Norm Powell to continue here. He's got to take some time away from PG and Kawhi to keep them fresh for the playoffs. This team is full of ring-hungry dudes, and Kawhi's got to help lead them to that finals so they can all add something to their trophy case here. Next up in the division, the Phoenix Suns. They had won 2 in a row going into the break, but lost their first coming out, losing to the Mavericks by 10. Booker balled out pretty good in that one. KD didn't play up to his usual standards, and the usual reliable others didn't play up to their potential. But I wouldn't look too much into that. They're still rolling without Bradley Beal, but he's going to be coming back soon. And this is another one of those teams I say you don't want to match up in a 7-game series with. Booker had a big night this night. It could be KD the next. It could be both of them. You do not want to play them. And they kind of got a weird schedule coming up here. 3 of their next 4 games are against the Houston Rockets, who aren't even in the same division. And I don't know how that lined up, but I have the Suns as favorites in those games. They'll be tested, but they should take care of the Rockets there. Next up in the division, the Sacramento Kings. They had a nice break with 2 of their main studs getting all-star snubs. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, neither of them involved in the game. And they withstand the late Spurs run to take a win against my San Antonio team. Sabonis got another triple-double, 19 on the year for him now. 52nd of his career, he dropped 22 points and 11 boards, 11 dimes in the win. They're 8th in the West right now, showing you how good the West is. But this is another team on that you do not want to meet them in the playoffs list. They have that terrific dynamic duo I mentioned. They have 6-man of the year favorite Malik Monk, well, my favorite anyway. They have Red Velvet. Kevin Huerter looks like he's rediscovered his shot. Keegan Murray's looking consistent. This could even take pressure off Harrison Barnes, and he can show up in cameo appearances. He was lighting it up a bit before the All-Star break. We'll go back to LA. The Lakers are up next. They took a 3-game winning streak into the All-Star break, but would lose their first one after against the Golden State Warriors. They would suit up without LeBron James in that one, and it was noticeable. Anthony Davis shined for the Lakers, scoring 27, 15 boards, and 3 blocks, and Russell and Reeves played pretty good, but that was about it. Jackson Hayes looked pretty good in his limited minutes, and maybe Ham can find a way to get Davis and Hayes some time together. I don't know. That'd be a pretty dominant front court there. Before the season started, I picked the Lakers to get to the finals. You know, that could be a stretch right now, sitting in 9th in the conference in the play-in spot, but I'm not going to come on here and doubt a LeBron James team. This Lakers team has enough to stay in the play-in running and maybe work a little higher. And you may scoff at the play-in, but look what the Miami Heat did from that spot last season. They just went, I don't know, all the way to the NBA Finals. We'll wrap this division by going up to the Golden State Warriors, a team that beat the Lakers coming out of the All-Star break. They've been cooking going into the break, winners of the 8 of their last 10. Curry scored 32 in that win over the Lakers, and the team was doing it from scoring from all over. Andrew Wiggins looked like the Wiggins on that title run. Klay Thompson coming off the bench. It seems like the right move at the right time to keep this team in title contention, you know? It's not an easy move, you know? Probably a Hall of Famer. It's not easy to get moved to the bench, but look at what future Hall of Famer Russell Westbrook, him going to the bench has really helped the Clippers. This Warriors team's getting hot at the right time, you know. They sit 10th seed in the conference, you know, in that last play-in spot. But this team can strike fear into anyone. You do not want to get matched up with the Golden State Warriors. And they're really finding their way right now. And they've been through fucking hell and back this season. So it's good to see them kind of finding their ways and at least looking happy. It's amazing. But we'll wrap up my team breakdown / predictions by going to the Southwest, starting with the division leading New Orleans Pelicans. Pels had won 3 in a row going into the break and kept that streak going, thumping the Rockets by 22 at home. And they spanked the Rockets without one of their big three. Brandon Ingram didn't suit up in that one, but no worries. Zion dropped 27, CJ McCollum 28. I've always hyped up this Pelicans team, saying they could be the real deal, you know, a title contender, I even said. I said Zion Williamson could be MVP this year. Maybe the MVP thing isn't happening, but maybe the title contention can still be there. The only thing hurting the Pelicans, one of the things hurting them, is their lack of showing up to play in big games. And I guess the playoffs are considered big games, so that'll be one of the big challenges for them. This team is mad deep, you know, with all the injuries they dealt with earlier. It really gave time for the young guys to show what they can do. Like Jordan Hawkins is a stud, and he can barely get time on this team. But they have some tough games coming up, but I could see this 4-game winning streak of theirs growing. Speaking of winning streaks, next in the division, the team tied with the Celtics for the current longest streak in the NBA, the Dallas Mavericks. They kept that streak going coming out of the break with a huge win over the Suns. Much like Jokic, Luka's numbers go down in exhibition games and then skyrocket in regular season games or games that matter. He had 41 points, 11 dimes, and 9 boards in that win over the Suns. Kyrie had 29 as well. Looked fantastic doing it. Like, I don't know. I can't say it enough how entertaining it is to watch Kyrie Irving. What he does with his handle. His finishing. One of the best finishers in the game. This is a bias, but being a Spurs fan, what Tony Parker could do in the paint for a little guy, his finishing, yeah, Kyrie Irving surpassed that. He is fantastic. But anyway, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, the new acquisitions, they didn't really have to do much in this one, you know. They had this game taken care of against the Suns. The Suns, they battled, but the Mavs just seem to have it taken care of. They have a unique East Coast road trip coming up. They'll be taking on some tough East competition. The Pacers, the Cavaliers, the Raptors, who I'm expecting to be better, and the Celtics. That'll be a big showdown. It'll be cool if the Celtics and Mavs could keep long winning streaks into that one. You'd have two teams on like 10, 11 game winning streaks facing off. But anyway, that's looking ahead of myself. But we'll see how the Mavs deal with some of that Eastern competition. We'll stick in Texas and go to the Houston Rockets. They got Fred VanVleet back from injury, but they lost by 22 in Nolans. Elperin Şengün still looked pretty good in that game. And Amen Thompson, I mentioned his twin in Detroit. In the second half of the season could be the coming out party for the Thompson twins. They've had relatively quiet first half to their rookie season, but I see them filling up the stat sheets in the near future. They kind of do it all. Like Amen had 22 points, 5 boards, and 4 assists in that loss. And this team surprised people earlier on, you know, stealing wins here and there, and they faltered a bit as the season has gone on. But they're a young, growing team. That's bound to happen. They sit 12th in the tough Western Conference. I don't know if this team has enough consistency to jump back into the play-in spots, but I'm excited to see them develop and how they play out the season. Next up, the Memphis Grizzlies, winners of 2 in a row going into the break, and they're doing it with anybody or everybody, you know. Who else? Who's showing up? Taylor Jenkins, he's done it with this injury-riddled team. Like, what he's done is amazing. A recent update on injury showed Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart are nowhere close to coming back for the Grizzlies anytime soon. But they're not getting really any pity as they face off with the Clippers tonight, their first game out of the All-Star break. I mean, the last time we saw the Grizzlies suit up, they upset the Bucks on TNT, so maybe they can shock the Clippers. This team's fun to watch. They work so damn hard, and that's such a contrast from we just watched at the All-Star game. So at least when you know you're watching the Grizzlies, you're going to get a show. We'll wrap up the teams in the NBA by going to my San Antonio Spurs. The team, they've been taking lumps all year. They're in the basement of the Western Conference, but there's bright spots all over. Our first post All-Star break game, we're in a battle with the Kings. Vassell put up 32 points in the loss. Wembanyama had a rough All-Star weekend, kind of going par for the course and losing at everything he participated in. But these losses will show up as future wins down the road for the big Frenchman you watch. He put up 19 points, 13 boards, 5 blocks, 5 steals, and 4 assists in the loss to the Kings. The future is very bright for my team, and I can't wait. I have to, obviously, but I'd like to get us some wins and go on some winning streaks in the second half of the season. And just to remind these guys, it's good to develop, but do not come to terms with accepting losing. You don't want to be those guys. But that's it, another NBA episode in the books. Not so much recapping, more predicting and judging of the All-Star game, but I'm really looking forward to the second half of the season. That All-Star game left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth with the lack of competitiveness in it. We're back to competitive ball. We're back to seeing some good shit and seeing how it winds up. March Madness is coming up. That'll be on my other podcast. We'll maybe leak some of that in the here, but basketball. My weekly podcast I just mentioned, Sports and Shorts of Sorts, just had its 50th episode, so that was pretty dope. Dropped on Monday. But hey, this is basketball. These are the recaps. This is Ren City. Thanks again for coming out. Get those shots up and hold that follow through. Ren City out.